Cambridge. I'm thinking a little bit about Hope Cambridge, which is sort of the backdrop of some work we do on homelessness. A little bit about homelessness, although I feel a bit with an expert here, but he'll kick my ankles if I get it wrong, I'm sure. And then a little bit about how we've responded to what's been happening in homelessness, and therefore how you guys can get involved as well. So Hope Cambridge was set up in 2008, quite a long time ago now. It's a national initiative. Some of you may have heard some of the background that, and in Cambridge a number of churches got together and decided to bring together a group that would help churches work together in mission, social action, networking and prayer. So we're not interested in things that each individual church do, but things that we can do together, where we're better together, we can make a difference by working together, rather than working independently. And we set up quite a number of things over the years. You may have come across our calls to prayer. At a big event, we filled King's College Chapel with a call to prayer and then Great St Mary's. So really trying to encourage all churches to come together to pray for the city, for the good of the city. We host other prayer events as and when we can. We've done some mission events. When the Olympic flame came to Cambridge, we had a stall right in the middle of where the flame was coming in onto Parker's Piece. And we've run some, we've set up a thing called the Hope Players, which is a sort of evangelistic drama group. And when I say we, I mean there's only 6 of us who are trustees, but we tend to help by providing charitable structures and banking facilities and governance and guidelines and protocols, so that people who have a great idea can come to us, continue with the idea, and we give the kind of governance and structural framework within which that can happen. Of course, they're all things that we are very motivated to do. Hope Cambridge is an organisation committed to advancing Christian faith and to relieve poverty. So anyone that comes to us with these kind of ideas, we're very receptive to them. And on the sort of social action front, an early project was the Cambridge Street Pastors, which I'm sure you will have all have heard of, and I can make a plea as well if you want to volunteer in that activity on a Friday and Saturday. Please get in contact with Cambridge Street Pastors as well. We set up Nightlight, which was the Saturday night cafe we run in St Columba's Church. We'd love to do it on a Friday night as well. So those things are set up and then moved on to another organisation to continue. But about 4 years ago, it was apparent to many of the churches that we worked with that there was a growing problem of rough sleeping. Simply, churches were finding people on their doorstep, within their churchyards, within their porches who were rough sleeping, or people coming in the daytime seeking help. And there was a spike in rough sleeping. That's in fact a nationwide issue. The numbers have been going up steadily, and in some cases quite dramatically over the past 4 or 5 years, for a number of reasons, most of which are kind of socio-economic in a way, to do with housing and benefits. In Cambridge, where the price of rental property or bought property is so high, you've only got to be sort of slightly on the edge of the housing market, just about affording your rent, needing to get some benefits, and then you find that your landlord doesn't like you if you want benefits, so they kick you out, or you find your benefits don't quite cover any more than you rent, and so your landlord kicks you out. So people on the sort of crumbling edge of the housing market just end up on the street in due course. Now, I suppose any one of us could lose our home. Any one of us could suddenly find we've got no place to go of an evening. But I guess most of us have got plenty of other connections to call on. In your case, a very nice college and plenty of room to bed down here if you're stuck for any one night. Or we have friends we can go to, or family we can go to. The people that we see rough sleeping, and some of those that are begging, that are not all of whom are rough sleepers by any stretch, but those we see rough sleeping are generally people that have exhausted all those avenues of help. They've spent, if you like, all their social capital. Their sisters got fed up with them dossing on the floor, their nans have got fed up using the spare room, their ex-partner won't let them back in the home, etc., etc., etc. There's usually a story of some kind of family breakdown, often unresolved traumas around bereavement and so forth, which ends up they just feel completely on their own, without a home to go to, whether it's theirs or someone else's. And those are the situations that people find themselves in. If you go to the iPlayer, there was a very good BBC Two documentary about 2 weeks ago called No Place to Call Home, Those of you with longer memories than your lives will remember in the 50s, the film Cathy Comes Home. I don't remember it either, by the way. I'm sure that Barry doesn't. There was a film called Cathy Comes Home, which apparently was a real instigator to support the homelessness, and the shelter we've all heard of began a few weeks after that programme was broadcast. And this BBC documentary, which is still available on the iPlayer for the next couple of weeks, was about the situation people find themselves in, going to the housing office and wanting to make an appeal for support with accommodation. It's well worth having a little look. It's slightly biased, it's slightly extreme. The people on there who are the housing advisor people don't come across greatly. I can assure you that the people in Cambridge are a lot better. Not that I would say that, wouldn't I, because we're working with them, but it is a rather extreme example to make a point. But the situations that people are in and the responses they get are entirely true to life. I've been through it with people on a number of occasions, and it is depressingly familiar, the stories and the responses people get. So do have a look at that to see what it's like, not rough sleeping, but to be kind of rejected by the system and unable to get help with accommodation. It's just worth diverging slightly on types of homelessness. The people that we look after are people that do not have a legal right to be accommodated by the local authority. There are people that do, people that are in priority need, and often families, pregnant women, those that are disabled, do have a legal right to be accommodated by the local authority, what we call statutory homeless. You never see those people on the street because they're swept off the street into temporary or longer-term accommodation as soon as they become, or usually, it would be quite rare to see someone for whom the council has a legal obligation to house actually on the street. The people that we see, the people that Jimmy's help, that we help, and that other organisations help, are those for whom there is no legal duty, but the council, although it hasn't got to help them, it's allowed to spend money to help them. It may help, if not a must-help situation legally. And therefore, all the organisations that we'll talk about are all people that are benefit from funding out of the council's discretionary budget to support those for whom it doesn't have a housing duty, as it's called. And you'll see people, as I said, rough sleeping, you'll see people begging. There's not a huge overlap. A lot of people you find begging in the daytime are not rough sleeping. And if you see someone sleeping rough, you tend to find that they've got their bags with them because they've got nowhere else to put it. But it obviously is quite difficult to be clear, and obviously the person who wants your money is going to say anything in a way in order to encourage a dialogue that touches your heartstrings. There is, however, although you won't get this impression from some that you'll meet, there is significant provision in the city to support those for whom there's no housing duty but are still homeless. In particular, Jimmy's, that Barry will talk about it a bit, which is the access hostel. So if you're first homeless, you knock on Jimmy's door, you get on their waiting list, you go through Jimmy's, and that's a route through into other accommodation options, and eventually, with support and help, hopefully back to your own independent living. Winter Comfort on Victoria Avenue, just on the railway bridge there, you may have heard about, is a daycare centre. They have an open door policy that anyone that presents as homeless or vulnerably housed anyway is welcome in there to receive support, help with sort of practical issues of having a shower and getting your clothes washed and getting new clothes and so forth. All sorts of help towards getting work and so forth. They do an excellent job, and about 90 people pitch up every day at Winter Comfort seeking help, which is probably about a third of the total number of people that probably go to them, every so often. They do a great job. The City Council also funds a street outreach team that patrols the streets about sort of 6 to 8 in the morning and sometimes 7 to 9 in the morning to find people that are sleeping rough, to check on their welfare, and to encourage to go and see them to continue a conversation, usually at Winter Comfort, later that day. They're also doing some work amongst the begging community as well, trying to establish who of those are actually rough sleeping and need help. There are a number of hostels. You'll have maybe heard of the big hostel on Victoria Road 222, which is a number of hostels in a cluster now. It's not just one big hostel. They provide overall about 80 or so beds for people maybe for 1-2 years while getting established and moved on. They have another hostel in Willow Walk, which is for people with a drinking problem. There's another hostel, 451, which is run by people with a severe drinking problem. So depending on the particular need, there are a number of bed spaces that are partly funded by the council and partly funded by charitable donations, which support people, provide accommodation and support to come off drugs, come off drinks, establish themselves back into work if that's possible, or at least to be able to function independently in their own accommodation. The council also have a single homeless service which tries to secure properties from landlords that they can let out to people that have lost their homes, for people with lower levels of need who just want a room in a shared house, and they're doing a great job in providing. So those with lower levels of need who just haven't got a roof, there's now a much quicker route into affordable accommodation, which will last them for a year or two. So all these things we kind of observed and found out about. We got involved in sort of general advocacy by making a general nuisance of ourselves at the council and sitting on various committees which to do with housing strategy and so forth. Trying to take a view from what we've been doing as to what the needs are of people. But the churches we worked with were very concerned that no one should be sleeping rough, particularly in the winter, and hence the idea was born of a winter shelter to get people off the streets during the worst months of the winter. Now what happens before that is that it's quite a complicated scheme, but basically in any town or city, whether the weather is particularly bad, councils have a pseudo-legal duty to provide some kind of temporary accommodation, some kind of camp bed in some sort of warm space, that so-called severe weather emergency provision. And that might be just for a night of bad weather or for a week of bad weather. If it's not bad weather, there's no provision at all over the winter. By working with the council and with Jimmy's, there was quite a bit of provision has been provided under that protocol of these parties, and it's increased year by year. But of course that was only when there was particularly bad weather. And so we thought, well, what about when it's not that bad weather, it's still pretty rough being out there. Like tonight, would not be potentially a night that would be classified as cold weather. It's only what, 12 degrees out there, but it's pretty miserable. I don't think any of us would like to sleep out in a sleeping bag on this kind of weather. And so we had the idea, why don't we use our church halls, provide an opportunity for people to come and lie down and get some sleep in a safe and warm place overnight and be on their way in the morning. Hence the idea of a winter shelter was born. We tried it out first in 2013, just on 4 nights to see how it worked, and in 2013 and in 2014 we tried it on the nights when it was cold weather, working with Jimmy's. So we basically provided additional capacity when it was cold weather nights, and we got the hang of working with Jimmy's and how to work that through. And the next year we then went to the full provision of being open every night on certain months, regardless of the weather. So we did that in a full way in 2015, and again also last winter. Open for 3 months, open every night of that period. And this year we'll be open for 4 months. So we have a particular need. We're increasing our volunteer requirement by 33% this year. Hence, it's so important to talk to groups like you with an interest in helping. So how does it work? It's for the person on the street, it's a very simple proposition. They will have signalled to Jimmy's on any one day that they need help. We will signal to Jimmy's how many spare spaces we have, and then our winter coordinator who works for Jimmy's would then triage anyone that comes in, whether they come to us because we've got a space and they're suitable for us, or whether they take up some other provision. If it's cold weather, Jimmy's has additional provision, which Barry will talk about, and there are other opportunities as well. So it's a bit of a complex picture, but in essence we're trying to increase the baseline, the level of support over those 4 winter months by 15 beds, which is quite a significant inroad into the problem. So essentially the 15 men are offered each night of those 4 months a chance to come in and stay the night. We're open sort of roughly from 7 till 7, kind of a 12-hour shift when we're working. The guys arrive about between 7:30 and 8. Referral and assessment in terms of who they are, why they're coming, what the issues might be, is done with Jimmy's. as is check-in, which could include pat-down, checks, weapons, drugs, knives, etc. Obviously can't come in, so that's all handled professionally. And then once people are signed in and checked in, they're handed over to the team in that particular venue. There's a hot supper, fantastic food by the way. If you're a bit short of your food budget this winter, do lots of shifts because you'll get a lovely hot meal and gravy and fantastic puddings and custard. And there's always plenty. So if you like a nice hot meal and you're fed up with that baguette every night, then come along because it's fantastic food. And you might have to worry about your waistline as I did the first year. I had to, we can't have that every night. Anyway, but the principle is that we're having a family meal. So we're not serving them, they're coming to join us. So we have chairs around the table, and the volunteers dot themselves around and invite the guys to come and sit down. So it's like being welcomed to a family meal. And that, probably, is the most important thing that we offer. And if you talk to people, you'll find that, well, weather permitting, it's okay, you can get by sleeping out, but having no one to talk to, having no one to share something with, not being able to come and sit down in comfort and have an evening meal is a really significant thing for them. And so that idea of family meal is really significant. So so we have the meal, about 8:30 or so, 9 o'clock, it's all packed away. We might play some games, get out the Cluedo or whatever it might be. Or perhaps watch a film if that's facilities available for question. But by about 9 o'clock, a lot of the guys, especially in the early months, are dog tired and they want us to go and bed down. So, and by 10 o'clock, 10:30, we normally say lights out, which means people are in their sleeping bags, on the mats, snoring gently and sometimes not so gently away. There's a night shift, so most of the volunteers would then go home. 4 volunteers stay, which includes the team leader who's there all the time. And so overnight, 2 volunteers are on duty, 2 volunteers are sleeping, and about 2 o'clock in the morning they swap over. So we've got the 2 that will sleep, come and volunteer, come and stand watch, the 2 get some sleep. So ideally, you get at least, if you're an overnight volunteer or team leader, you do get about 3 or 4 hours sleep, hopefully, in that night. We wake the guests about 6:30 in the morning. Different churches are different, but perhaps make a cup of tea, offer a bit of fruit or a bun or something, and send them on the way by 7:30. By 7 o'clock, so we can have everything cleared up by 7:30, ready for the next occupier of the premises. All the guys are then welcome to Winter Comfort for breakfast and showers, which open at about 8:30. So they've all got a place to go to for breakfast and showers after they've been with us overnight. And everybody gets a little map of where the next night's church is, providing nothing untoward has happened. There might be occasions when we might say to someone, I'm sorry, we need to have a discussion before you can come back tonight. But all being well, people then welcome back the next night. So it's a round-robin model. As you may have seen, this happens in a number of other cities. In London, there are dozens and dozens of such projects in London. So on Monday night, we're at Emmanuel URC. On Tuesday, at Little St Mary's, so they're just across the road here. On Wednesday night, we're at Castle Street Methodist Church, which is up Castle Hill. On Thursday night, it's a bit of a mixture between Great St Mary's, Beth Shalom, the Reformed Synagogue, and Christ Church, which is actually just the church nearest to Beth Shalom. That's Thursday night. And, sorry, I beg your pardon, that's, Christ Church is also doing some Monday nights as well. So Thursday night is Great St Mary's and Beth Shalom. And then Friday night is Olem, the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church. Saturday night is St Philip's Church on Mill Road. And Sunday night is St Paul's Church on Hillsborough. So that's the sort of road. It's not entirely precise, but within niggles and boats across there. So it's basically 9 churches we're working with, providing 1 church each night of the week. Some of the churches have all their own volunteers. Olem are awash with volunteers because they're a big organisation and they've responded to this amazingly. This is the biggest thing they've ever done collectively as a church community, apparently. There's been a real hot response from their people. So they tend not to need anyone to help them. Other churches don't have a great congregation to support them and therefore are looking for others to help. So we've got some in a sort of great matrix, if you like, of where people come from and where they support, rows and columns, and we're trying to get where people are coming from, 20, 30, 40 different churches or places, where they're going to volunteer into 9 different places on which nights of the week. It's quite complicated. Anyway, it's all being handled, and all we need to know is what nights you can offer, how often you can do it, and what nights you can offer, any particular preferences, the place you want to go to, and we therefore match you up, hopefully fairly consistently, to particular nights of the week or venues, whatever seems to be appropriate. And to find out more about it, there are volunteer training evenings. The first one is this Thursday, and Lizzie there's a little poster with the details on. All the training events for volunteers are at 7:30 in the evening. The first one this Thursday is at Beth Shalom, the synagogue. Then next Tuesday at Little St Mary's, and Thursday next week at Great St Mary's. And that includes supper as well. Again, you get a taste of the amazing cooking that is being done. So it's supper, in a sense, to get the idea of eating as a family. That's the idea, to sort of illustrate what we're trying to do. And then various people, myself, will harangue you about the protocols and how we work and what you must do, what you can't do, etc. So I won't go into all those issues about the do's and don'ts, because you'll get that on a volunteer training evening. But that's how we start. And at the end of it, then everybody fills in the form, what they can do with their email address and what they can do, when they can do it, etc. And we compile that into a rota, which then goes over the winter period. And if you're keen to be a team leader, and we're really very keen to see some people who are team leaders, because it's quite a big job. You're there from 7 till 7, and you have, especially in the later part, when the core team, myself and others, have gone, you've got the full responsibility for the health and safety and well-being of the people that are there. So it's quite a big responsibility, and we could do with some more people willing to serve as team leaders. And there's special training in addition for team leaders at the end of November on the 16th and 22nd, and that we can tell you about separately. The limits of what we try and do in the evening, as I say, is to befriend, and then, if necessary, signpost and encourage them to go and talk to an appropriate agency. Anything more than that is handled by the core team, which is a small group of 6 of us who are sort of running the project, and we're there, 2 or 3 of us each night, specifically to engage with the guests, to form longer-term relationships that survive night by night, to understand whether they need more things to do with referrals to accommodation and support services, or in fact other life issues that are getting in the way of moving on into accommodation and support. And what we found in years before, that of the people that stayed with us more than 3 or 4 nights, nearly every person had some sort of positive outcome. The simplest route is a referral back into Jimmy's, but there are other hostels that can take people directly under certain circumstances. We've got other housing projects we've set up which people have been referred into, or we help with a bit of money towards perhaps buying a tent to tide someone over, or to get someone into some sort of accommodation, help them get a rent because of that kind of thing. So quite a bit of work happens behind the scenes in the daytime, picking up on what we learned in the evening. So it's not about, therefore, giving someone a bed and 4 months later, chucking them back out on the street. We want people to move through. So be here maybe for 3 or 4 weeks, and then finally, maybe we click with them, they're able to engage with us, and then we can help them to move on in their lives. And that's another, although slightly under the radar, really important thing, that we've helped people actually move on and successfully continue. So always with this community, it's 5 steps forward and 4.5 back, or maybe 4 back, so it's snakes and ladders. But I think we've had more people up the ladder than we have had down the snakes over the past few years, and that's a real encouragement. To see people that are back into work and accommodation, back on their feet, is obviously, if only one person, is redeemed. There's more rejoicing in heaven over that one person. And that's really the heart-moving thing for us as an organisation. So that, I think, is probably as much as I need to say, other than also Jim is running a sweat night on a very similar basis when it's cold, and we'd love for you to also consider